Welcome. Today we're looking into a style of music that emerged back in the 1960s and just completely changed how composers thought about sound.
It really did.
It's called minimal music. And this isn't just, background noise. It's music that's actually designed to put your brain on a different frequency.
It was a truly revolutionary idea,
Yeah.
and it was born out of frustration, really.
Frustration with what?
Well, if you look at classical music back then, many composers felt it had become just so tangled, so complex.
Right, too intellectual.
Exactly. The structure was completely hidden from the audience, so they reacted against that. They wanted to create music that, showed its entire construction openly, so anyone could access it and understand the process.
So it was kind of a rebellion for simplicity.
The rebellion for transparency, yeah. The movement developed mostly in the United States, starting in places like New York City and San Francisco in the early 60s.
Which makes sense. Those were hubs for experimental arts.
They were. And it was essential because this music was so radical. I mean, it just didn't fit into traditional concert halls. The big question these pioneers were asking was, how little stuff can we use to create something vast and absorbing?
That's a great question. It feels so counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It really does.
Usually you think bigger music means more notes, more instruments, more complexity, but they wanted the opposite.
They absolutely did. And this focus on using minimal material, well, it eventually made it one of the most powerful influences on all the music that came after it.
Okay, so to really zero in on what makes it tick, we have to talk about its single most important feature.
Repetition.
Repetition. Instead of a long, sweeping melody, a composer chooses one very short musical idea. They call it a cell, and that cell just gets played over and over again for a long time.
Right, but the repetition, it isn't an attempt to bore you. It's a tool. It's a tool to change how you listen.
How so?
Well, traditional music is all about anticipation, right? You're always wondering what note is coming next. Minimal music shifts your focus entirely to the now.
Okay.
The constant pulse creates this feeling of intense focus. A lot of people describe it as a calm or even a trance-like state. Because the basic pattern never really changes, your attention naturally starts to zero in on tiny, tiny shifts.
Things you would otherwise just miss completely.
Exactly. Tiny shifts in texture or rhythm or volume. It's a very meditative experience.
It's like watching waves hit a beach.
That's a perfect analogy. Or looking closely at moving shadows on a wall. It just allows your brain to settle into a rhythm that's predictable.
And that stability is really anchored by the pulse itself.
Mm-hmm.
Minimal music almost always keeps the exact same tempo from start to finish. No dramatic slowdowns or speed ups.
It's like a completely unwavering heartbeat.
Yeah.
It gives the whole piece this grounded, organized feel.
Yeah.
And that clarity is crucial. The rhythms themselves are often pretty straightforward,
Right.
built using simple notes that fit onto a standard grid. You hear a lot of 44 time, which is super common in pop music because it gives you that reliable, easy-to-follow structure.
So the foundation is simple. 44 time, steady tempo, repetitive cells. But if everything is so simple, how do they keep it from just getting stale? How do you build complexity out of that?
Well, this is where the genius comes in. They rely on these methods of subtle internal change.
Let's talk about one of the most clever techniques they developed, phase shifting. It's like an illusion where the music changes its shape without adding any new notes. How does that even work?
Okay, so imagine two performers.
Yeah.
Or it could be two tape loops. They start out playing the exact same melody at the exact same time,
Oh.
perfectly synchronized.
Okay, got it.
Then one of them speeds up just a tiny, tiny bit, maybe by just one single note's length.
But wouldn't that just sound like a mistake, like someone's rushing?
That's the challenge. And the whole point, it's intentional.
Yeah.
As they fall out of alignment, the two identical melodies start to interfere with each other. They create these new, strange patterns.
Like echoes or something.
Kind of. Like sonic echoes or moving shadows across the sound. These new patterns weren't actually written down in the score. You, the listener, perceive this shimmering interference as the music evolving.
And the journey is completed when they eventually slide back into being perfectly synchronized again.
Exactly. It's a closed loop. Steve Reich, one of the founders, was a huge pioneer of this. He used tape recorders at first and then wrote pieces for live musicians that require just incredible rhythmic precision.
And this phasing technique is a great example of a broader idea they used, right? The gradual process.
Yes. The entire philosophy of this music is that it unfolds slowly and logically. According to some kind of preset plan or rule, there are absolutely no sudden dramatic flourishes or surprising crashes.
So how gradual are we talking? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine a piece that's, say, 15 minutes long. The first 2 minutes might be nothing but one single high sustained note,
Wow.
and only after maybe 3 or 4 minutes is a second note added. The change is almost geological. It follows a simple, transparent rule, like add one new note every 128 beats.
So the composer isn't just showing you the end result, they're showing you the rules of the game.
That transparency is everything.
Yeah.
Because you can understand the process, you feel like you're building the structure right alongside the composer. It creates this very strong sense of order, of honesty even.
Okay, let's shift from the structure to the actual sound quality. If the structure is all about slow, steady process, I guess the sound itself needs to be stable and predictable. What about the harmony?
They definitely moved away from the complex, sometimes harsh or clashing sounds of earlier modern music. Minimalist composers prefer what's called consonant harmony,
Which just means,
sounds that are pleasant,
yeah.
stable, agreeable to the ear. They actively avoid notes that fight against each other.
Which must make the music pretty accessible.
It does. Very. They intentionally use traditional scales and chords, the kind of stuff you might hear in folk music or even basic pop music. And that gives it a really strong, familiar foundation.
And they stick with it for a long time.
Oh, yeah. It's not uncommon for a piece to stay in the exact same key for 20, 30, or even more minutes. That creates this incredibly peaceful, meditative atmosphere.
So if the harmony is stable and the rhythms are super clear, what kinds of instruments are best for delivering that precise sound?
The instrumentation is really carefully chosen to highlight that rhythmic clarity. Mallet instruments, marimba, vibraphone, xylophone are incredibly popular.
Because their sound is so sharp.
Exactly, so crisp and clear. They make the rhythms just pop. Pianos and electronic organs are also used a lot because they can sustain those long, repetitive patterns without losing energy.
I can just imagine all those working together, creating this huge, shimmering wall of sound.
That's a great way to put it. And when voices are used, they're not really there to tell a story or sing a lyric. They treat the voice as just another instrument.
So just singing simple syllables or humming?
Yeah, exactly. Just adding to the texture and the rhythmic density, not telling you a story.
All right, now we have to meet the architects of this whole movement. There are really 4 founders who shaped minimal music, starting with the earliest experimenter.
That would have to be Lamonti Young. He's often called the father of minimalism. His early work was groundbreakingly radical. He was known for these long, sustained drone pieces.
Drones, like one long note.
Basically.
Yeah.
Sometimes lasting for hours or even days. He was interested in how you, the listener, perceive the tiniest differences in pitch over these vast stretches of time.
Then there's Terry Riley. What's his big contribution?
Riley is famous for his piece from 1964 called In C. It's iconic. It's basically a series of 53 short melodic phrases that musicians can repeat as freely as they want.
So every performance is different.
Completely unique. It was a revolutionary way to combine simple material with this really open, almost democratic structure.
Okay, next is Steve Reich, who we already mentioned with phasing. Tell us a bit more about him.
Reich's commitment to process is just perfect in works like Clapping Music from 1972.
Clapping music.
Literally. It's written for 2 people and their hands, just clapping. One person claps a fixed rhythm the whole time, while the second person gradually shifts their rhythm until they're back in sync. It's the ultimate example of creating complex sonic drama with almost nothing.
And finally, the composer who probably brought minimalism to the biggest audience.
Philip Glass.
Philip Glass.
Yeah, Glass took these principles of repetition and gradual change and applied them to huge forms like opera and film scores. His music has a bit more emotional weight, which is why it works so well for Hollywood.
Right, like The Truman Show. You hear that and you instantly know it's him.
You do. He showed that you could take these really experimental ideas and use them successfully in the mainstream.
It's clear these 4 really redefined classical music, but this whole movement wasn't just happening in a vacuum, right? It was happening in visual art, too.
Absolutely. I mean, the motivation behind minimal music was completely parallel to minimalist art in painting and sculpture. Both movements wanted to remove all the emotional baggage, the hidden symbolism.
Art is personality.
Right, to focus purely on the object itself. Whether that object was a canvas or a musical note, it meant getting rid of any unnecessary details.
So in art, what would that look like?
In sculpture, you might see pieces that are just simple industrial materials. 10 identical metal boxes in a straight line. In painting, you see simple geometric shaped squares, circles with repetitive patterns and very few colors. Both valued clarity, order, and the beauty of simple structures.
Okay, so we've got the history and the philosophy, But why should you, listening to this, care about a classical style from the 1960s? Well, because these principles are foundational to almost all the popular music you listen to today.
It's true. If you look at electronic dance music EDM, it's built entirely on a steady, unwavering beat and repetitive loops that slowly change over time.
That's pure minimalism.
Pure minimalism, just with new technology.
Yeah.
And that technique filters directly into pop music. When producers create a catchy hook, that little phrase gets stuck in your head.
That's a musical cell.
It's a musical cell, a short, engaging loop that becomes the core of the song.
And film scores, too.
Film scoring leans so heavily on these ideas. Composers use those stable, repetitive structures to create sustained tension or a sense of wonder without distracting from what's on screen.
And we can't forget hip-hop. The whole genre relies on the repeating loop or sample. It's the same core concept. Our entire sonic world would be unrecognizable without these composers.
Which brings up a practical point. How should you listen to minimal music for the first time? The biggest challenge is resisting that urge to look for a standard, hummable melody or some big dramatic story.
So you have to adjust your focus.
You do. Instead of asking what's coming next, try listening as if you're looking through a microscope. Focus on the tiny shifts, a slight change in texture, the rhythm going out of phase, the gradual addition of one instrument. That's where the drama is.
And you shouldn't feel intimidated if a piece is like 30 minutes long. A lot of people find it's great music to listen to while you're doing something else that requires concentration.
Yes, like drawing, reading, studying. It creates a steady, predictable environment that can actually help your mind focus better than silence.
The legacy here is huge. It evolved into post-minimalism, which added back more emotional variety, and it influences everything from video game soundtracks to the music in shopping malls. The big takeaway is that this movement proved one simple idea, explored deeply, is often way more powerful than a lot of noise.
Exactly. These artists showed that clarity and ordered structure can be a really powerful form of art. It can offer a genuine sense of calm in a chaotic world.
The beauty of minimalism is finding those surprising, tiny bursts of change that happen inside something that sounds so repetitive. It's music that really rewards your patience and deep concentration. So next time you hear a loop in a movie or a song, ask yourself, is a repetition the whole point, or is it hiding something changing underneath? Good luck with your studies.